I couldn't believe it. 1 minute. I was floating on my back. The cool lake water a gentle embrace. The sun warming my face. The next. A shadow fell over me. A voice. Crisp and sharp as a shard of glass. Cut through the quiet hum of nature. You are in violation. That will be a $300 fine. My breath hitched. Karen. Brenda Harrison. President of the Lakeshore Property Owners Association. But everyone just called her Karen. She stood there. A vision of suburban menace in a perfectly pressed blouse. One hand on her hip. The other clutching a clipboard like it was a scepter of absolute power. Is this a joke? I sputtered. Pulling myself onto the dock. Water streaming down my arms. She didn't even blink. The association's bylaws are clear. The lake is a protected ecological preserve. No unauthorized recreational activity. You have been observed. The fine will be applied to your account by the end of the day. The arrogance in her tone. The sheer audacity of her claim. A low growl rumbled in my chest. This is my lake, I said, pointing a shaking finger at the water. At the dock I had just built with my own 2 hands. At the property line I'd walked 100 times. This is my property. A dry, humorless laugh escaped her lips. Your property begins at the edge of the lake. Mr. Jacobs. The water itself. And the lake bed. Are common areas under the jurisdiction of the HOA. Ignorance of the bylaws is no excuse. My heart was thumping. A frantic, angry beat against my ribs. $300. For swimming in my own backyard. A silent, seething rage started to boil. How could she? How dare she? The fine landed in my inbox an hour later. A cold, digital slap in the face. My first instinct was to fight. To call her. To yell. But a deep breath steadied me. Fury is a poor strategist. I needed a plan. The lake had been the whole reason I bought this house. I'd fallen in love with the little A-frame cottage. But it was the promise of that glassy, still water that had sealed the deal. So I went to the source. I spent the next 2 days buried in documents. Land deeds. Property surveys. The full, excruciatingly detailed HOA bylaws that had been shoved into a dusty folder at the closing. My eyes ached. My head pounded with legal jargon and decades-old maps. This wasn't just about a fine anymore. This was about something more fundamental. It was about principle. It was about one person's brazen power grab and another person's right to their own slice of peace. And then I saw it. A single, almost unreadable line in the original 1968 deed for my plot of land, granting exclusive riparian rights to the adjacent water body and its underlying lakebed, to be maintained in perpetuity by the owner of Parcel 7. Block B. With no encumbrance from future covenants or associations. My heart leapt. Riparian rights. It was a term I'd heard. But its full weight had never hit me before. It meant the land wasn't just at the shoreline. It extended into and under the water. The lake was, in fact, mine. But the most important part. No encumbrance from future covenants or associations. The deed, a ghost from the past, explicitly stated that no future HOA could ever take control of my lake. This was more than just a counter-argument. It was an atomic bomb. I leaned back in my chair. A slow, triumphant smile spreading across my face. I needed to confirm this. I called an old family friend. A retired property lawyer named Alistair. He was notoriously cranky and lived in a house full of dusty law books. A living, breathing archive of archaic legal minutiae. Riparian rights. He rasped over the phone. A dry chuckle in his throat. Good luck, son. They're a bear to prove. But when I read him the exact wording from the deed, his entire demeanor changed. Holy. Wow. I haven't seen that language in 40 years. That's a golden ticket. Kid. A bona fide golden ticket. It's not just a right. It's a preserved, inalienable right. The HOA has no authority. Zero. He paused. And I could hear the rustle of papers on his end. But there's something else. Something you might be missing. His voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. The HOA has been maintaining the lake. Correct. Taking water samples. Treating for algae. Trimming the shoreline. Yeah. I said. A shiver of dread going down my spine. How? How have they been doing that? They have to have been on your property to do it. Every time. A new twist. This wasn't just a fine for swimming. This was a trespass. A pattern of trespassing. And that, I realized with a sudden, cold clarity, came with its own set of consequences. The HOA board meeting was held in the cramped, airless community center. The usual suspects were there, including a scowling Brenda at the head of the table. A dozen neighbors, a mix of the curious and the perpetually disgruntled, sat in rows of plastic chairs. My heart hammered. A frantic drum against my ribs. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the front, feeling the weight of the fine and the truth on my shoulders. Brenda, a smirk playing on her lips, spoke first. Mr. Jacobs, your grievance regarding the recent fine is noted. We've reviewed the bylaws, and our position stands. This is a closed matter. The smugness in her voice was like a physical blow. But I took another deep breath and pulled out my documents. It's not a grievance. Mrs. Harrison, I said, my voice steady, though my hands trembled. It's a correction. I've brought the original 1968 deed to my property. I placed it on the table. A few murmurs rippled through the room. Brenda rolled her eyes. That's an old document. The HOA bylaws supersede it. Do they? I asked. My voice barely a whisper. I found the page and started to read the crucial line. The sound of my own voice, clear and precise, filled the room. The smiles on a few of the board members' faces faded. Brenda's smirk faltered, replaced by a scowl. That's a clerical error. A misprint from a bygone era. The lies came easily to her. But I had more. I also have a sworn affidavit from a former surveyor who worked on the original development. He confirms the intent of the document and its validity. I slid a second paper across the table. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes narrowed, searching for a weak point. I could feel the energy in the room shift. Was I an adversary? Or was I a hero? It was hard to tell. So, the $300 fine is baseless. I'll need a full refund and a written apology. My voice was louder now. Confident. But that's not all. My research led me to another finding. I let the silence hang in the air. A thick, heavy blanket. I saw a flicker of genuine fear in her eyes. She knew. She had to have known. The HOA, under your direction, has been on my property multiple times. You've had contractors here. Surveyors. Landscapers. All of them. For years. Have been trespassing on my land to maintain the lake. A collective gasp went through the crowd. I have photographic evidence. Invoices from your contractors showing work done on my land. And sworn testimony from a neighbor who saw your crews. You've trespassed. Mrs. Harrison. You've trespassed on my private property repeatedly. In violation of both local ordinance and common law. Brenda rose from her chair. Her face a mask of scarlet fury. How dare you? This is preposterous. You're making things up. Am I? I said, pulling a final document from my folder. Under the terms of our town's anti-trespassing ordinance, repeat offenders are subject to a penalty of up to 10 times the original fine. Given the HOA's history of fines against its residents for minor infractions, I feel a tenfold multiplier is appropriate. You fine me $300 for swimming in my own lake. I'm hitting you with a $3,000 trespassing penalty. To be paid to me personally by the HOA. The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear the buzzing of the fluorescent lights. Brenda's eyes darted around the room. From the document on the table to the shocked faces of her board members. The air left her lungs in a long, shuddering sigh. All the composure she'd carefully constructed, the ironclad authority she wielded, just evaporated. It was the sound of a deflating balloon. A small, sad puff of air. The vice president of the board, a kind-faced man named David, cleared his throat. Brenda. Is this true? She couldn't meet his gaze. She looked down at the table. Her hands clenched into fists. Knuckles white. The power had shifted. The board, realizing the legal peril, huddled together for a tense, whispered discussion. They had been exposed. Not just for a petty fine, but for a fundamental breach of trust and a years-long pattern of illegal access. David finally looked up. His expression grim. The board will vote to pay the penalty. And, Brenda, your resignation is requested. Effective immediately. The words were quiet, but they echoed like a thunderclap. The Karen's reign was over. She grabbed her purse. A tear of pure, bitter defeat rolling down her cheek. And stormed out. The door slamming behind her. I didn't take the $3,000. Not for myself. Anyway. I used it to create a trust fund for the conservation of the lake. Managed by a nonprofit dedicated to preserving local waterways. The lake was mine. Yes. But it belonged to more than just me. It belonged to the ecosystem. To the community. To everyone who deserved to feel a sense of peace and ownership without the fear of an overreaching authority. The money was a symbol. A testament to the idea that a person's dignity and rights are worth more than any fine. That night, I stood on my dock, listening to the crickets sing, watching the moon cast a silver path across the water. I wasn't just swimming in my lake anymore. I was a steward of it. I had fought for it. And in doing so, I had redefined what it meant to own a piece of this world. There's a peace in knowing you've stood up for what's right. A stillness that no bully can ever disturb. What about you? Do you think my actions were right? Or did I go too far?